Hey there, welcome back. Before we dive into tonight's chilling story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Trust me, YouTube loves that and will keep sending you scary stories like this one. Have you ever felt the weight of doom in your hands before you even knew you were in danger? That's what it was like when I first read the rules. Not company policy or HR guidelines, but actual rules. Bone-chilling, inexplicable rules for surviving the night shift at the Mill Creek post office. My name is Tommy Reed, a man as ordinary as the soil under Alabama boots. 38 years old, single, mailman by trade. I never asked for excitement. I never asked for horror. But horror came knocking anyway, wrapped in yellowed paper and sealed by something that was not human. It was a Thursday night, 10:03 p.m. sharp. The wind outside howled like it knew something I didn't. I clocked in with the ancient brass machine on the wall, tick, ka-chunk, and that's when Marvin handed me the envelope. Old Marvin, the veteran of this haunted postal battlefield, stared at me like he was already mourning my soul. "You sure you want this shift, son?" he asked, voice dry and broken. "Yeah," I lied. "I like the quiet." His expression didn't change. Just slid the envelope across the counter like it was a loaded gun. "Then read this, every word, and don't skip, not one." The paper was crisp yet fragile, typewritten in all caps. 10 rules, not suggestions, not folklore, rules. Rules for the night shift, Mill Creek Postal Station. 1. Clock in exactly at 10:03 p.m. Not a minute earlier, not a minute later. 2. Lock the front door behind you, check it twice. 3. At 11:11 p.m., place a glass of milk on the front counter. Do not drink it. 4. The red mailbox outside is for them. Do not touch it. 5. If you hear scratching from P.O. Box 121, ignore it. Do not open it. 6. Between 12 a.m. and 12:15 a.m., do not blink for more than 3 seconds. 7. At 1 a.m., you'll hear a knock at the back door. Do not open it. 8. If a letter arrives addressed to someone who doesn't exist, burn it. 9. Lights will flicker at 2:22 a.m. That's normal. Don't panic. 10. Never ever fall asleep. I read it once. Then again, each word ice-picking its way into my nerves. I looked up, expecting Marvin to smirk, to admit it was a prank. But he wasn't smirking. He was already walking out the door without looking back. The door closed behind him like a casket, and I was alone. The first rule is timing. The second my shift began, I followed Rule 2. Locked the front door, twice. I stood in the middle of the lobby, staring into the nothing, trying to calm my racing thoughts. The air was thick, like the building itself held its breath. I could hear the walls settle, the pipes groan. Even my own heartbeat sounded too loud. I tried sorting letters, pretending things were normal, but every minute that passed felt like a countdown. At 11:11 p.m. I remembered the milk. Rule 3. I found the milk in the break room fridge, still cold, still fresh. I poured it into a glass and placed it on the front counter. Nothing happened. For a moment I thought maybe I was being silly. Then I saw the shadow, a figure, tall, still, watching from just beyond the front window. When I turned to face it, it was gone. Rule 5 introduces the scratching. At 11:40 p.m., scratching started, from P.O. Box 121. At first it was faint, then angry. Scratching like something inside was desperate to get out. I walked toward it, reached for the key. But then I remembered Rule 5. I froze. The key dropped from my trembling hand. The scratching continued for another 30 seconds. Then it stopped. All was quiet again. My breath returned, but not my peace. The no-blinking madness. Midnight hit. Rule 6. No blinking for more than 3 seconds until 12:15. I set a timer and kept my eyes wide open. It was harder than I imagined. My eyes burned, dried out. Tears stung, but I endured. Until 12:08 a.m. I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, he was there, behind the counter. A man, but not a man. His uniform was shredded, his face twisted and mismatched like someone had tried to rebuild it from memory. "You're not Marvin," he hissed. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. You blinked. And then he was gone. Shelter in the closet. I ran. My legs moved before my brain could catch up. I slammed the supply closet door shut behind me. Sat there in the dark, shaking. 12:15 a.m. passed. When I emerged, everything was still. A knock in my sister's voice. At 1 a.m. the knock came, as predicted, then the voice. "Tommy, let me in, baby, it's cold." My sister. But she died 6 years ago. I backed away, didn't speak, didn't open the door. The voice begged, cried, pounded. Then silence. Flickering lights in the red mailbox, 2:20 a.m. The lights flickered. I told myself not to panic, Rule 9. When the light steadied, I saw it. The milk. Gone. I looked outside. The red mailbox, Rule 4, stood wide open. I stepped outside, looked inside the box. Empty. I slammed it shut and ran back inside, breaking Rule 4 in the process. At 3:03 a.m., a letter slid under the door. To the man who shouldn't be here. Inside, you broke Rule 6. I ran to the break room, stuffed it in the microwave, burned it. The fire alarm blared. Smoke stung my eyes. But I felt safer knowing the letter was ashes of the past. At 3:30 a.m., Marvin appeared at the window. Pale, ghost-like, staring, but Marvin had left, or never existed, or something worse. I turned off the lights and hid. The phone call, 4:44 a.m. A rotary phone I'd never seen before rang. A voice whispered, 4 more rules. Follow them if you want to see the sun. Then silence. I never found those rules, so I made my own. Tommy's rules. 1. Trust your gut. 2. Stay in the light. 3. Never believe the voices. 4. When in doubt, run. Dawn and the final twist, 6 a.m. The front door unlocked itself. Opened slowly. Dawn spilled in. I walked out, dizzy, broken, but alive. Later, I called to resign. Mill Creek, the lady said. Sir, that post office burned down in 1998. It doesn't exist. I didn't reply, just hung up. Every Thursday at 10:03 p.m. I get a letter. No stamp, no name. Just the same words. Ready for another shift? I don't answer. Not yet. But one night, I might not have a choice. The old brass lock groaned as I turned the key. I double-checked it, just like rule number 2 said. Click, then again. Click. It echoed in the quiet, far too loud for comfort. The post office felt like a tomb now, every sound bouncing off the walls with a strange kind of finality. I was sealed in. I moved through the room like a shadow, checking corners, trying to convince myself that I wasn't scared. But the truth is, I've never been so terrified in my life. The ancient clock ticked away behind me, louder than it had any right to be. I glanced at the list again, now tucked in my pocket, and read the next instruction for the 1,000th time. Rule number 3. At 11:11 p.m., place a glass of milk on the front counter. Do not drink it. I looked at the time. 10:56 p.m. I headed toward the break room and found the fridge humming away like always. The milk carton sat in the corner, one of those small kid-sized boxes you'd find in a school lunch. Cold, unopened, no expiration date. That should have been the first red flag, but I didn't hesitate. I grabbed it, walked to the front counter and placed it dead center. The ticking of the clock filled the silence. 11:10, then 11:11. Nothing happened. I waited. 1 minute, 2. My pulse was slowing down. Then the front door groaned. The one I had locked, twice. It didn't open, it didn't rattle. It just made a noise like wood settling, but sharper. Intentional. My head snapped toward it, every instinct screaming to run. And in the reflection of the glass door, I saw something move. Not a full shape, just the outline of a person. Or maybe a thing. It stood just outside the building, unmoving, like it had always been there. Like it was waiting. I blinked hard. When I looked again, it was gone. But the milk was also gone. I didn't touch it. I swear I didn't. The carton was just gone. No trace, no condensation ring, no tip, spill, or drip. The clock ticked on. Rule number 4, the red mailbox outside is for them. Do not touch it. Out of sheer stupidity, or maybe curiosity, I walked to the window and peeked outside. The red mailbox stood under the glow of a dying street lamp. Nothing unusual, except it felt like it was looking back at me. Daring me. I backed away quickly, hands shaking. Then it started. 11:40 p.m., a scratching sound, soft at first, like claws dragging across metal. It came from P.O. Box 121. I approached, my legs wooden. Each step echoed. The sound got louder, more urgent. Something or someone was trying to get out. My fingers hovered near the key ring on my belt. I caught myself just in time. Rule number 5. If you hear scratching from P.O. Box 121, ignore it. Do not open it. I backed away. The box shook violently for a moment, then stilled. Not a sound followed. I returned to my desk, more alert now, more afraid. Midnight struck. Rule number 6. Between 12 a.m. and 12:15 a.m., do not blink for more than 3 seconds. Simple, right? No. I sat in my chair and kept my eyes open. My watch alarm was set for 12:15. I was doing okay for the first few minutes. My eyes burned, but I kept blinking quickly, never longer than a second. Then around 12:08 a.m. I slipped. Just for a second. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't alone. Behind the counter stood a man. No, not a man. A corpse shaped like a man. His eyes were wrong. His skin stretched over his bones too tight. His smile looked carved into his cheeks. He wore a postal uniform, faded, torn, and he reeked of mold and soil. "You blinked," he said. His voice sounded like it came from under the floorboards. And then he was gone. I didn't scream, couldn't. My body had locked up like a machine too cold to move. I crawled backward into the supply closet and slammed the door. I stayed there until 12:15 a.m. Only then did I come out, and the nightmare continued. The moment my eyes shut for just a second too long, I felt it. A shudder in the air like a door swinging open on rusted hinges. And when they reopened, the post office was not empty. Standing behind the front desk, where only moments before there had been no one, was a man, or something wearing the shape of one. His uniform was a parody of Marvin's, shredded and hanging like burial wrappings. His flesh looked like it had been arranged incorrectly, like someone had tried to sculpt a man from memory and got it wrong. Lips curled too wide, ears too low, one eye a smudge of shadow. "You're not Marvin," I choked out. He tilted his head, lips parting in a way that showed far too many teeth. "You blinked," the thing whispered. It didn't move toward me, didn't lunge. But its presence was a pressure, pushing against my ribs, my lungs, my thoughts. I stumbled back, heart thundering, and ducked behind the partition separating the back room from the front. My feet barely found the ground. I sprinted, breath ragged, into the break room and slammed the door behind me. I didn't stop. I pushed on into the janitor's closet. Shut that too. There in the pitch-black space that reeked of ammonia and mildew, I curled into a crouch and held my breath. Minutes passed. Hours, maybe. My brain wouldn't tell the difference anymore. When the silence felt thicker than air, I eased the door open. Nothing, the man-thing, was gone. But the lights hummed a little angrier, and the post office no longer felt familiar. It felt borrowed, like I was in a place wearing its skin. I kept moving. Rule 6 had cost me already. I didn't dare break another. 1 a.m. The knocking came like a funeral drum. 3 raps. A pause. 3 more. My blood turned to ice. Then the voice came. Tommy. It was my sister's voice. I'd know it anywhere. But she'd died. Car crash. Closed casket. 6 years ago. "It's me, baby. I need to come in. It's cold." My stomach turned. My knees buckled. I crawled into the corner, clamped my hands over my ears, rocked back and forth. I wanted it to stop, but it didn't. "Please, I'm freezing. Why won't you open the door?" Wood splintered. The frame groaned, but the lock held. And then, just when I thought the sound would break me, it stopped. Silence again. So pure it hurt. And then came 2:22 a.m. The lights flickered. Normal, I told myself. It's in the rules. But when they steadied, the milk was gone. I hadn't touched it. Something had. My stomach dropped. My legs carried me forward on their own, like they didn't belong to me anymore. I made the mistake of looking toward the red mailbox. It stood open, gaped really, a metal maw yawning into the night. And the air around it shimmered like heat off pavement, only it was freezing. I slammed the door, locked it, backed away like it might chase me. At 3:03 a.m., something slid under the door. A letter, no stamp, no address, to the man who shouldn't be here. My heart stuttered, my breath caught. I opened it. You broke Rule 6. Panic surged. I ran to the break room, crammed the letter into the microwave. Sparks lit up the small space. Smoke, alarm, fire. I didn't care. Let the whole place burn. But the flames died down, and so did the night, temporarily. 3:30 a.m. A face appeared in the front window. Marvin, or not Marvin. He stared, wide-eyed, lifeless. I turned off the lights and hid. No thoughts, only instinct. 4:44 a.m. The rotary phone rang. It hadn't been there before. The voice on the line was dry, hollow. 4 more rules. Follow them if you want to see the sun. Then silence. What 4 rules? Where were they? No new list appeared, no whisper in the walls, so I made my own. 1. Trust your gut. 2. Stay in the light. 3. Don't believe the voices. 4. When in doubt, run. And then I waited for dawn. Midnight in Mill Creek doesn't feel like midnight anywhere else. The air shifts, it thickens. It settles on your skin like a film of dust, cold and cloying. The post office, normally so still, feels like it's watching, breathing. And when that clock struck 12, something told me I'd just crossed into the belly of the beast. The rule echoed in my head. Between 12 a.m. and 12:15 a.m., do not blink for more than 3 seconds. I didn't question why. Not anymore. That wasn't the kind of night where logic mattered. That was the kind of night where you obeyed or you vanished. I splashed water on my face, bracing myself, and set a timer on my watch. 15 minutes. My heart was already racing as I took a seat at the front desk, positioning myself under the brightest light in the room. I stared straight ahead, eyes wide, throat dry. The seconds ticked. At first it was easy. I blinked on rhythm, counting 1, 2, open. The minutes passed. The room held its breath. Then the burning started. My eyes, resisting every instinct to rest, began to ache. My vision blurred. My lashes fluttered involuntarily. I pressed my nails into my palms, grounding myself. No more than 3 seconds, not even once. I reached the 7-minute mark, and something shifted. It began with a hum, soft, low electrical. The overhead lights buzzed louder. The fluorescents flickered, just once, but long enough to cast momentary darkness over the room. I blinked. 2 seconds, 3, and opened my eyes. There was someone standing behind the counter. A man, or something shaped like a man. He wore a mail carrier's uniform, but it was wrong. Tattered, damp, like it had been buried underground for years. His skin looked paper-thin, pale and waxy. His face, oh God, his face. It was a crude imitation of one. Eyes too wide, nose too flat, mouth stretched in a mockery of a smile that sent bile rising in my throat. "You're not Marvin," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The thing didn't answer. It just leaned forward, moving with a stiffness that made its limbs look disconnected. Then it whispered, voice like dry leaves dragged across pavement. "You blinked." I scrambled backward, my chair clattering behind me. I couldn't look away. Its eyes, if they were even eyes, never moved, never blinked. It stood frozen, smiling. And then it was gone. No movement, no sound. 1 second it stood before me. Next the space was empty. My legs gave out. I dropped to the floor, panting. The timer on my watch beeped. 15 minutes exactly. I'd broken the rule. The silence returned, but it was different now. Tense, watching, like something behind the walls had just stirred. I didn't get up for a long time. I couldn't. My muscles refused to listen. It was only when the clock struck 1 a.m. that I managed to move, and that's when the next rule knocked. 3 sharp raps at the back door. I froze. My blood iced over. I didn't need to check the list. I knew the rule by heart. At 1 a.m., you'll hear a knock at the back door. Do not open it. But this time it wasn't just knocking. "Tommy?" A voice, soft, familiar. "Tommy, please. Let me in. It's freezing out here." My heart clenched. It was my sister's voice, my baby sister, Kelly. But Kelly was dead, has been for 6 years. The knock came again, more urgent. "Come on, it's me. I'm cold, Tommy. Please, open the door." I stumbled back, hands pressed over my ears. I knew it wasn't real. It couldn't be. But God, that voice, it sounded just like her. I remembered her laugh, her songs, the way she'd tap on the door just like that. "Tommy, please, I'm scared." I dropped to my knees, shaking. I couldn't take it. The voice wasn't angry, it was pleading, heartbreaking. It sounded like she was crying now, sniffling, choking on tears. I screamed at the air, "You're not her! Leave me alone!" The knocking stopped. So did the voice. For a long moment I just sobbed, uncontrolled, exhausted, alone. The rule had been obeyed, but the price was still pain. At 2:22 a.m. the lights began to flicker. That's normal. Don't panic. That's what the rule said, and I repeated it to myself like a chant, like a prayer. But panic doesn't care about rules, because when the lights came back on, the milk I had placed on the counter at 11:11 p.m., it was gone. My eyes scanned the room. No footprints, no sound, no doors opened, and yet the glass empty, missing. Something had taken it, and that meant something was here. Something that followed the rules better than I ever could, and it wasn't done with me yet. I didn't move. Not when the door clicked open at 6 a.m. Not when sunlight spilled in like an exorcism. I stood there, watching the pale gold crawl over the tile floor like holy water, burning away the nightmares clinging to every surface. I felt like a man who had been underwater too long and finally broke the surface. But I didn't feel relief. The silence had changed. No longer heavy with threat, but with anticipation. Like the house itself held its breath, waiting to see if I'd make it out or crumble just a few feet from safety. The list was still in my pocket, my own rules written in desperation, clenched in my fist like a lifeline. I took one step forward, then another, and another. When my boots crossed the doorway, something in the air shifted. Lighter, cleaner, birds chirped somewhere distant. The wind touched my face and didn't whisper threats this time. I was out. I had survived the shift, but I didn't look back. And that should have been the end. It would have made a hell of a story, right? Guy survives the night, walks off into the sunrise, shaken but alive. Cue credits. Only, that wasn't how this ends. I didn't sleep that day. Couldn't. My mind replayed every rule, every sound, every flickering light and whisper in the dark. I sat in my living room, the curtains drawn tight, the list on the coffee table like a cursed relic. I didn't eat. Barely drank water. Just sat there in that numb, silent fog. At some point, I picked up my landline and called the district office. Mill Creek Post Office, I told them. I'm calling to resign from the night shift. The woman on the other end paused. Sir, what office did you say? Mill Creek. Another pause, a long one this time. Sir, the Mill Creek office was shut down. It burned in a fire back in 1998. There's nothing left there. I remember staring at the phone. My fingers went numb. I didn't argue, didn't ask questions, just hung up and stared at the list on the table. Burned down. No one worked there, but I had. For hours, I'd locked the door, heard the knocks, seen the man with the broken face. I touched that red mailbox. I nearly opened P.O. Box 121, and I survived. So how the hell was that possible? I went to bed eventually, tried to convince myself I'd imagined it all, that I'd fallen asleep and dreamt a nightmare vivid enough to leave a scar. But when I woke the next day, there was a letter on my porch. No stamp, no return address, just one sentence. Ready for another shift? I didn't touch it, left it sitting there. But the next week, same time, Thursday at 10:03 p.m., another letter appeared. And the week after. And the week after that. I've tried everything. Moving. Didn't work. The letter showed up at the new place. Burning it. It reappears the next week. Ignoring it. But the dreams return, the post office, the list, the knocking. And here's what I've figured out. I didn't survive the shift. I'm still in it. Somehow, some way, I never left that place. Maybe I'm stuck in a loop. Maybe the building's ghost claimed me. Maybe I'm just dead and don't know it. But every week I get a choice. Go back or don't. Each time I've said no. But I know one night I won't be able to resist. I'll open the letter, read the new list, walk back into that post office. And next time I don't think I'll get a sunrise. So tell me this. If it were you, and you knew the shift was still calling you back, would you go? Because I think next week I might. The minute hand on the wall clock clicked over to 3 a.m. with a mechanical sigh, and I sat still, staring at the heavy wooden door as if expecting it to bleed shadows. After the phone call. 4 more rules. Follow them if you want to see the sun. I'd scribbled my own rules in a panic, but the quiet that followed wasn't comfort. It was the hush of a held breath, the calm before the storm. I sat in silence, the old wrench cold and sweaty in my grip. Every creak of the post office felt louder now. The air felt thicker, like the oxygen itself was soured by fear. I don't know what I expected to happen next, but what I didn't expect was absolutely nothing, until 3:27 a.m. A low hum began to buzz through the floorboards, faint at first, like a wire vibrating in the walls. It grew louder, closer. The light above my head flickered once, then twice, and then everything went dark. Not just the usual flicker and return. I mean pitch black. Complete blackout. And the humming? It didn't stop. It turned into a deep, vibrating resonance that shook my teeth in my skull. I fumbled for the flashlight in my jacket pocket and switched it on. The beam sliced through the dark, dust motes swirling like snowflakes. That's when I noticed something that hadn't been there before. A door. Not the front entrance, not the back room. A new door wedged between the mail sorters and the old safe. A narrow, steel-plated door with no handle, no frame. Just there, breathing. The metal surface throbbed subtly, like a pulse under skin. I stepped closer, my instincts screaming in protest, but the rules had stopped. No guidance, no path. Just my own scrawled list and the sound of my own thudding heartbeat. The door made a sound. Not a creak, not a knock. It whispered. Not words. Not anything human. Just the sound of breath and need. It took everything in me not to run, but I couldn't move. My boots were bolted to the floor by terror. Then, without warning, it opened. Behind it, nothing but fog, thick, choking, blinding. It spilled out into the room, rolling across the floor like floodwater. I stumbled back, coughing, swiping the air. My flashlight beam vanished in the grey. Then came the voice. Tommy, high, soft, feminine. You forgot to check the safe. I froze. There is a safe in the back of the post office. Ancient. Rusted. I hadn't touched it in years. Hadn't even thought about it. Open the safe. I shook my head. No rule about the safe, I muttered. There's no rule. Open the safe. The whisper shifted, became multiple voices, low, deep, high, raspy, all layered on top of one another, chanting, beckoning. I backed away until I tripped over a fallen mailbag and hit the floor hard. My flashlight skidded out of reach. I scrambled for it, but something else grabbed it first. A hand, grey, bone-thin, veined like marble. It pulled the flashlight into the fog. The beam vanished. The door slammed shut. Darkness again. I crawled into the break room, feeling the tile scrape my knees, my breath shallow and ragged. I slammed the door and shoved a chair under the knob. It wouldn't stop anything serious, but it made me feel less alone. Minutes passed. I have no idea how many, maybe hours. Then I heard it. The sorting room. Metal sliding on metal, boxes being opened, envelopes being torn. Something, or someone, was sorting the mail. But I hadn't touched the mail in hours. I crept to the break room door and pressed my ear against it. Tommy, a whisper, right behind the door. I held my breath, didn't move, didn't blink. The knob jiggled once, twice, then silence. The clock on the wall ticked over to 4 a.m. I'd made it another hour. I just had to make it 2 more. 2 more hours until the sun. 2 more hours until I could leave. I just had to survive. But I knew the fog hadn't left. It was still here, coiling in the air ducts, seeping into the walls. It was watching. It was waiting. And worst of all, it had learned my name. The faint hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, but the comfort they once gave had faded. My body was bone-weary, my nerves fried, and my mind strained to separate hallucination from reality. I leaned against the break room sink, staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror above it. Bloodshot eyes, pale skin, dark circles. I barely recognized the man staring back. My watch read 4:58 a.m. Just 2 minutes before the sun would start bleeding light over the horizon. But I wasn't counting on salvation. That phone call, the one that had delivered 4 more rules, still echoed in my mind. I'd written them down, desperately hoping they would be enough. Trust your gut. Stay in the light. Don't believe the voices. Run when in doubt. My gaze flicked to the door. It had remained still for the past hour, but I didn't trust stillness anymore. Then, without warning, the air in the room changed. The temperature dropped. The light above me buzzed louder before going dead. No flicker, no warning. Total darkness engulfed the room. "Stay in the light," I whispered aloud, reaching blindly for my pocket flashlight. My fingers fumbled, shaking, but they found it. I flicked it on and bathed the break room in a narrow beam of yellow light. The shadows retreated, until they didn't. Out of the corner of my eye I saw movement, a slithering, crawling darkness along the floor, snaking toward me. I yanked open the break room door and sprinted out into the hallway, my boots thudding against tile. I didn't care about stealth anymore. I needed light. Safety. The front lobby still had working lights. I made for it like it was an oasis in a desert of nightmares. As I passed the sorting room, a sharp whisper hissed from within. "Tommy, wait, please." My sister's voice, again. But I knew better this time. I didn't stop, didn't glance, just ran. Rule 3, never believe the voices. I hit the front room and slammed the door behind me, chest heaving. The lights were holding, but they flickered, subtly, rhythmically. I backed into a corner and scanned the space, and that's when I saw it. Standing at the window, a man, tall, in a deep crimson postal uniform that shimmered like blood in candlelight. His face was obscured by the brim of his hat, but his eyes glowed like twin embers, faint and seething. I couldn't look away. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared through the glass like he'd been waiting for hours, days, centuries. My flashlight flickered, once, twice, then it died. The lobby lights went with it, pitch black, but the glow of his eyes remained, twin red dots in the darkness. And then, like a puppet on invisible strings, he lifted one arm and pointed, directly at me. I screamed. It wasn't a scream of terror, it was defiance. I grabbed the flashlight and smacked it against my thigh, once, twice, 3 times. The beam returned. The eyes were gone. So was the man. Only the window remained smeared with a faint handprint in something that looked too dark to be fog. My legs collapsed beneath me. I sat there, panting, sobbing, laughing. Who could tell the difference anymore, as the first rays of sunlight began to spill across the floor? The door creaked open, and once again I survived the night. But the question burned hotter than ever. Who is the man in red, and what happens when I stop following the rules? The hallway smelled like burning paper and rust. I don't know how I ended up standing there, legs stiff, breath shallow, palms clammy as ice, but I was staring down that corridor again, the one that didn't exist on the floor plans, the one with walls that pulsed like veins carrying something alive beneath the surface. The Crimson Watcher was gone, for now, but its presence still lingered like fog on my skin. The silence was worse than its voice, worse than the growl. It was the kind of silence that made you feel like someone was still watching, but now from the inside of your skull. Then I heard it. Click. The static of the old radio in the sorting room suddenly burst into life. I hadn't turned it on. Hell, I hadn't even been in that room in hours. But there it was, crackling like a dying fire, a voice buried in the noise. I turned toward it, heart pounding like a war drum. Dead mail, deliverance. He waits beneath the mist, the mist, the mist. Then cut. Static again, and something red oozed from under the door, not blood, not paint. Something in between, thick, pulsing, like it was alive. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a sack of undelivered letters that hadn't been there 5 seconds earlier. The lights flickered violently overhead, humming louder, louder, like they were trying to scream. Rule 11. If the hallway behind the red mist appears, do not walk down it. Do not acknowledge it exists. Look away, hum, pray, cry. Just don't walk. But I did see it. Right there, clear as day, stretching behind the sorting room, was a new corridor. Mist spilling out like breath from the lungs of hell. My legs trembled, and not from exhaustion this time. Something in me wanted to go down that hallway. It was like gravity dragging me forward. I clenched my fists, forced myself to turn away. Instead, I grabbed the old radio. Its knob's cold, too cold. like it had been buried underground. It sparked to life on its own. Click. Another voice came through, this time familiar. "Tommy? Tommy, is that you?" It was my father's voice. He'd been dead since I was 16. "You left me out there, son, alone in the mist, cold." My hand froze halfway to the volume knob. This wasn't just a haunting, this was manipulation, psychological warfare. Rule 12, if the radio speaks with a voice you love, do not answer. The dead don't use radios, the devils do. I gritted my teeth and yanked the cord from the wall. The radio screamed, a real human scream, and then silence. I dropped it like it was on fire. I still had time to survive this shift. Barely. I stumbled into the manager's office, the one that had been locked all night. Now it was wide open. Against every instinct I had left, I went inside. The walls were covered in photos, old black and white shots of postmasters dating back to the early 1900s, but all of them were scratched out. Faces blackened, eyes torn, except one. A single photo sat in the middle of the corkboard, untouched. Not dusty, not aged. It was a photo of me, wearing the uniform, standing right here. Only the date at the bottom said June 1949. I stumbled back. The filing cabinet drawer beside the desk rattled, slowly slid open on its own. Inside, I found a thick manila folder labeled Shift 13, Read T. My name, my initials, my file. But I had never seen it before. It was packed with handwritten notes, maps, a rule book. At the bottom of the file was a Polaroid photo of Marvin. But it wasn't the Marvin I knew. He was younger, smiling, holding the exact same rules list I had. On the back was scribbled, "He blinked." I slammed the drawer shut. My heart felt like it was going to explode. And then I noticed the final page. Tucked at the back of the file was a note in fresh ink. "This time, don't break Rule 13. The basement is not for you. He's down there, and he knows your name now." I didn't even want to know who he was, but something was calling me from below. At 2:59 a.m., the air pressure in the room shifted. Every light blew out at once. The power was gone. And somewhere under the floorboards I heard steps, slow, wet, dragging, like someone pulling themselves through mud. And they were heading for the stairs. I backed into the manager's office, slammed the door shut, and held my breath. On the old clock above the desk, the second hand ticked toward 3, then stopped. Froze mid-air. Time had stopped. Literally. Then the whisper came through the vent above me. "You opened the red box, Tommy." My breath caught. I hadn't. Not really. I'd only touched it. But that was enough. The vent above clattered open, and a long, pale arm began to reach through. I ran. Down the hallway, toward the front lobby, toward the only light left in the building. And there it was, smeared in blood on the front counter. If the clock stops, the rules no longer protect you. Then it's just you and him. I didn't want to know who he was, but I would. Soon. Because the door to the basement had creaked open on its own, and from within I heard a slow, hollow voice whisper, "Third shift. Your shift. Come clock out." The door to the basement stood open like a yawning grave. Cold air spilled up the stairs, thick and damp, wrapping around me like fingers made of fog. I stood at the threshold, staring into the void. No lights, no sound, just darkness. Behind me, the building was no longer safe. The radio had screamed, the hallway had bled, and Rule 13 made one thing terrifyingly clear. The protections were gone. This was now survival, nothing else. I should have run, out into the woods, into the cold, into anything but that basement. But something, some terrible pull, dragged me forward. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was death, beckoning like an old friend. Step by step I descended. The stairs creaked under my weight, groaning like a ship in a storm. Each one dipped slightly, warped from age or something worse. The deeper I went, the more the silence grew. Not the silence of quiet, but of emptiness. A dead vacuum that felt like it could suck the soul out of your lungs. Halfway down, the door slammed shut above me. I jumped, whirled. Tried to run back, but it was sealed. No handle, no hinges, just wall. I was trapped. I turned back toward the darkness. At the bottom of the stairs, the air grew warmer. Sickly warm. Like the breath of something alive. something that had been sleeping for a very, very long time. There were no lights, but somehow I could see. The walls glistened faintly, coated in some sort of slime or sweat. Pipes jutted out like ribs from a buried animal. The floor squished beneath my boots. I don't know how far I walked. The hallway twisted and turned like intestines, narrowing with every step. I brushed against walls that pulsed faintly, as if reacting to my heartbeat. Then, a light, a single flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling, and beneath it, a chair. A man sat there, head down, hair grey and stringy, body unmoving. "Marvin," I whispered. He raised his head. It was Marvin, but not. His face looked carved, like wax that had melted and reformed too many times. His eyes were gone. Hollow sockets stared back at me. "Did you follow the rules, son?" he asked in a voice as dry as dust. "I tried," I whispered. His mouth twisted into something halfway between a smile and a snarl. "That's not good enough." Then he raised a finger and pointed behind me. I turned, slow, shaking, and saw it. The thing in the basement wasn't like anything I'd ever imagined. It didn't have a face, or maybe it had too many. Shapes shimmered and shifted. One moment a man, the next a spider, the next a mass of mailbags and limbs sewn together. Letters fluttered in the air around it like birds. Each one bore the same phrase, "To the one who broke the rules." My knees buckled. I fell backward, hands scrambling for purchase on the slime-covered walls. The thing stepped forward, except it didn't walk. It drifted. Every movement made a noise, like pages being torn out of a book soaked in blood. "Clock out," it whispered. I screamed, and I ran. I don't remember how I found the elevator. One minute I was lost in the maze of pulsing walls and shifting floors. The next I was in front of a rusted freight elevator, the up button glowing faintly. I slammed it with my fist. Nothing. Behind me, the thing's voice drifted closer. It wasn't yelling. It didn't need to. It invited. "We've got a route just for you." I kicked the doors, punched them, begged. Finally, a ding. The doors slid open. The inside was worse than the outside. Black mold crept across every corner, and in the center, nailed to the wall, was a clock. The hands pointed to 10:03, my start time. The doors slammed shut behind me as I stepped inside. The elevator didn't go up. It went sideways. The walls shimmered. The air grew heavy. I sank to my knees, clutching my temples as memories not my own flooded my head. 100 other mailmen. Hundreds of shifts. Hundreds of rules. Each one ended the same. One broken rule, one missing man. A new name on the list. And now, it was my name. When the elevator finally stopped, I didn't find myself in the post office. I was in a field. The sky above was purple, the grass below was black, and in the distance I saw a single mailbox. Red. I walked toward it, the only sound my own footsteps and the low hum of cicadas that didn't exist. Inside the box was a letter addressed to me. Final delivery. I opened it. "Thank you for your service, Mr. Reed. Shift complete. Sunrise pending, if you survive the final knock." I turned, and the thing stood behind me again. Only now it wore my face. I don't know how I escaped. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm writing this from somewhere between the crawl space of life and the basement of death. All I know is I woke up on the post office floor. The sun was rising. The door was unlocked. The list was gone. But in my pocket there was a new envelope. It read, "Welcome to Night Shift, Tommy. Permanent assignment confirmed." The sun was rising. The sun was rising, but it didn't feel like victory. I stood just outside the Mill Creek post office, staring down at the envelope that hadn't been there a moment ago. "Welcome to Night Shift, Tommy. Permanent assignment confirmed." The paper was thick, heavy, like it had been soaked in something long ago. Blood, oil, or something older. My name was etched into it. Etched, not printed. I dropped it, but the moment it hit the ground, it vanished. Gone, like it had never existed. That's when I realized the rules had changed, again, and I was still playing. I should have walked away, left the town, burned the place to ash if I had to. But I couldn't, because deep down I knew something no one else did. Not even Marvin, not even the others who'd worked the graveyard shift before me. This wasn't just a cursed post office. This was a gateway, a thin place between worlds, a place where lost things lingered and broken rules bled into reality. And worst of all, I was part of it now. The days that followed were a blur. I tried calling the district office again, disconnected, tried searching for Mill Creek Post Office online. Nothing. Just articles about a fire 25 years ago. No survivors, no rebuilding, no mention of employees, even my own mail. Stopped coming. No bills, no ads, no packages, just letters, always the same, no return address, always stamped at 10 p.m., and always ending with the same message. We'll see you soon. I started seeing things outside of work. At the grocery store, a woman smiled at me too long. Her face didn't move. Her eyes blinked sideways, like a lizard. At the gas station, the clerk handed me change and whispered, "Don't forget Rule 7, Mr. Reed," before going back to normal like nothing happened. In the mirror sometimes, I wasn't alone. One night, a month after my last shift, I got the call. A black rotary phone rang in my hallway. I don't own one. I answered. "You're late." The world twisted. Walls pulled apart, shadows unzipped like coats. I was standing at the front desk of the post office again, though the building looked wrong, rotten, like it had been decaying for centuries. The lights flickered on. The clock read 10:03 p.m. A new list lay waiting for me on the counter. It was shorter. Final rules. Permanent postmaster 1. There is no clock out. 2. There is no backup. 3. You are the last line. 4. Deliver the final letter. The last letter sat in my bag. It pulsed slightly like a living heart. The envelope was stitched shut with black thread. There was no name on it, just one word, truth. The radio crackled behind me. I turned it on, because that's what I always did. But this time, it didn't play static. It played my voice. And if you're hearing this, you already broke a rule. I slammed it off, but the walls kept whispering. The floor kept humming. Every object I touched felt like it was watching me. The post office was alive, and it was hungry. I don't remember walking out the door. 1 minute I was staring at the list. The next I was standing in the middle of the woods. The red mailbox stood before me again, only this time it had arms, not metal, not wood. Flesh. Veins pulsed beneath the paint. Its mouth hung open, wide enough to swallow a man whole. I had the letter in one hand, a match in the other. If I delivered the letter, I wouldn't be me anymore. If I burned it, I might die, or worse, survive. So I made a third choice. I tore it open. The world screamed, wind roared, trees cracked. The ground pulsed like a living lung. And in my hands was a mirror, a small jagged piece of glass, etched with words I will never forget. You were always the postmaster. You just forgot. I fell to my knees. Memories, not just mine, thousands of them rushed in. Men, women, kids, all mailmen, all mailwomen, all people who followed the rules, who failed, who disappeared. And at the center of them all, me. Millennia of shifts, lifetimes of deliveries, every cycle ending the same, with a letter, a rule, and a choice. The thing in the basement, it wasn't a monster. It was me. The part of me that remembered, that kept the engine running, that punished the ones who forgot, and now it was free, because I remembered. The mirror pulsed once in my hand, then shattered, the wind died, the trees stopped, the red mailbox turned to dust, and I woke up. It was morning. The birds sang. I was lying on the floor of my tiny apartment. No wounds, no blood, no letters. But my uniform was gone, my boots missing, my bag empty. Only one thing remained, a new rule book, bound in leather with a blank cover, waiting to be filled. By me. So now I sit at my desk every night, pen in hand, writing down new rules, testing them, breaking them, learning how to trap the dark before it escapes. I am the new Marvin, the new gatekeeper, the last line between order and what waits behind the rules. And if you're reading this, you just started your shift. Good luck.